The episode that we have all been waiting for is finally upon us. Welcome to FCS All-In. It's our championship show as we preview the top-seeded South Dakota State Jackrabbits going up against the Montana Grizzlies. Thanks for watching all year long. I'm your host, Alex Eshelman. My co-host, Sam Herder, Craig Haley. They'll join me shortly to recap the playoffs as well as preview the upcoming game between the Jackrabbits and the Grizzlies. We also have Stanford Steve. That's right, guys. ESPN's Stanford Steve is our celebrity guest picker. We can't thank him enough for his time. So with that being said, suit up. It's time to kick off the show. We've got senior FCS analyst of Hero Sports, Sam Herder, and senior FCS editor of Stats Perform and theanalyst.com, Craig Haley. Guys, it's so good to be back together. Oh my gosh, I feel like it's been too long. And also at the same time, I feel like it's been 2 seconds. I mean, this playoff run has been quite incredible. And speaking of which, your biggest takeaway from playoffs, Craig, I'll start with you.
Well, shout out to the Big Sky Conference for giving us 4 overtime games. And that's a record for the FCS playoffs, 2 being Montana, of course, and 2 being North Dakota State as well from the Missouri Valley Conference. I just think that has stood out. I think, getting a championship of 1 versus 2 is the right way to go. South Dakota State versus Montana. It's only the 8th time that's happened, the top 2 seeds. So I just think it's been a great playoff.
Craig mentioned the overtimes. That certainly sticks out. I think special teams too. It seemed like every round, whether it was a block punt for a score, a punt return for a score, a big kick return, maybe a muff punt or something like that. There's a block PAT for a win by North Dakota State. It seemed like every week in multiple games, there were special teams, either miscues or big plays that had a big impact on the results.
Most surprising team or player that had you go, oh my gosh, I did not think that they were going to do this well in this playoff run.
Albany, more so going back to their preseason expectations. I thought when the bracket came out, they had a decent chance to make the semifinals, but just going back to their preseason expectations, coming off of a 3-win season, they were picked near the bottom of the CAA. For them to not only have, a great regular season, but also parlay that into a trip to the semifinals. I think Albany is kind of the surprise team here.
Sam nailed it with Albany. I mean, they validated themselves, getting to the semifinal and winning on the road at Idaho. I mean, if I was to go another direction, maybe North Dakota State, because they did win at Montana State. They won at South Dakota and avenging a regular season loss. They were the only non-seed to advance to the quarterfinals. I mean, they're not a surprise, of course, but, being a non-seed to get that far certainly says a lot.
A team that did not make the playoffs that you think will rebound next year and make the postseason. Craig, I'll start with you.
You go different directions. Maybe UIW from Southland Conference. I mean, they lost just about their entire team after going to the semifinals last year, and they had a new coach with Clint Killow. They return a lot more this time around, and obviously it's, not making the playoffs doesn't go well there. Maybe they're on a little bit of a revenge tour down in the Southland. So I'd probably say UIW.
Western Carolina out of the SoCon, they were right there. If they wouldn't have gotten an upset loss there to end the regular season, probably would have made the bracket. So I think they'll be able to rebound. They did lose a handful of key guys to the transfer portal. So we'll see how they can kind of stymie that and maybe add some pieces on the other end of the transfer portal. But I think the building blocks are there. They had a breakout season this year, and I think they're ready to take that next step next year and make the playoffs.
A lot of interesting storylines going into that 2024-25 season. But for now, this episode is all about our upcoming title game between the reigning national champs in South Dakota State and the Montana Grizzlies. We will talk about that matchup coming up.
Founded in 1985, the Missouri Valley Football Conference has established a tradition of FCS football excellence. Competing at the highest level of NCAA Division I, student athletes at its institutions demonstrate character, passion, and integrity as they grow as a student, an athlete, and a citizen. The Missouri Valley Football Conference, where leaders are shaped and champions are forged.
Before we get to Sam and Craig, let's hear from the Missouri Valley Conference, as well as Montana head football coach Bobby Houck and company, on how these two teams are preparing for the upcoming matchup.
Since the start of fall training camp in August, it has been national championship or bust for South Dakota State. Now the Jacks are just one win away from back-to-back national titles and potentially rewriting the Valley football record books.
The maturity on this team and how great we really want to be and how we never become complacent, no matter what it is or how good we are at something. We're always, asked to do better, work on it. And, a lot of guys on the team push one another and make sure everyone else is holding each other accountable to do the things we need to do to dominate every Saturday.
If you've had the success that we've had, I think the common thing would be you don't feel like you need it or you feel like you've arrived. And I don't think in any way our guys have felt like they've arrived. And I think largely due to that stems from they've been the underdog their whole life. It's just now everybody's making them out to be a juggernaut. These guys were highly recruited. They just are now one of the best players because they've developed into that.
A senior class that head coach Jimmy Rogers refers to as uncommon, a selflessness and connectedness that has largely been formed off the field, yet is rare with so much star power.
It's like seeing Mason on a pulling block, him by somebody up. I get more excitement for other people's wins than I do for myself. And, that's just the love you have to have for one another to be as successful, as we are as this season.
Davis has owned the postseason with 7 100 or more rushing yard performances dating back to last year. Yet for as prolific as the Jacks' entire offensive unit has been, it's the defense rewriting Valley record books with 2 shutout performances, plus an opportunity to potentially go down as the greatest defense in Valley football history.
When I became a coordinator in 19, we had done research over the last 5 to 10 years of who were the teams that won the national championship and what were they ranked the best. And 10, it started off, we moved it to 14. And then once we got to 14, we put it at 14 points per game. We had got to 15 points per game. And I thought, well, let's just keep lowering this thing as much as possible. Who cares if people think it's undoable? And so we put it at 10 and it's at 9.7. So it's just, it'll be the first time if we can do what we're supposed to do in the championship game.
It's all added up to a laser-focused South Dakota State bunch who continues to fight for extra moments together.
Having to turn it up a notch, knowing that, the next game isn't promised. Every Monday, we have our mental strength coach talk to us, and on the board it says 5 days left. You're only promised 5 more days together as a team.
These are some of these guys' last ride and just kind of enjoying those moments throughout the entire week and really just having fun on game day. Because if you let the pressure exceed the pleasure at that point, you're not going to have as much fun and you're not going to have as good day as we have been having. So.
And capping it with confetti flying would complete the greatest season in this senior class and South Dakota State's history.
Jackrabbits don't wait to see what the future holds. They build it. At South Dakota State University, the next generation's leaders are preparing to launch. They're focusing on growth, and they're reaching new heights of excellence across vital industries. SDSU is building something greater for South Dakota and the world. Join us.
Though it's the first time since 2009 that Montana football finds themselves playing for a national championship, competing on the big stage is nothing new to the Grizz. Montana football has 2 national titles under their belt, one in 1995 and the other in 2001. Grizz head coach Bobby Houck, who also notched the victory of becoming the winningest leader in Big Sky football history this season, has taken Montana to the championship 3 times prior to this year. However, he and the Grizz know this appearance against the reigning national title holders will be their toughest task yet, starting on offense.
How they play is great. They're outscoring their opponents 537 to 136 right now. They're giving up less than 10 points a game. They're dominant.
They're a very sound team. Everybody plays downhill, and they try to squeeze the interior gaps and try to spill most of the run game. They're solid in their pass rush.
Montana's defense also understands that they have a tall order from trying to take down the FCS leader in rushing yards, Isaiah Davis, and Walter Payton Award finalist Mark Gronowski.
He's efficient. He doesn't turn the ball over a lot. He's just comfortable in their scheme. Their offense is just sound. You know, you turn on the film and they got a great offensive line. They got great skill players, good quarterback, good running back. I mean, I think there's a reason they're playing in this game and they've won so many games in a row.
Now that being said, the Grizz are on a 10-game winning streak of their own, led by stars such as Jerry Rice Award winner Eli Gilman, Big Sky Defensive Player of the Year Alex Gubner, the program's leading punt returner Junior Bergen, just to name a few, and most importantly, a resilient group as a whole.
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is we've stayed healthier and we've been more mature up front on offense. So we've been able to handle some of the better defensive lines and some of the better defenses a little better.
I think the past two teams understood the ability that we had to be in this game, but we've stayed healthy. We've put our nose to the grindstone, and we've just gotten better every week.
Our entire team's just done a good job of improving throughout the entire season. You know, if you look at our first game against Butler to our last game against North Dakota State, we look like a different team, and I think that's just testament to the guys inside of the locker room, the coaches just going to work each and every day.
Kickoff is set for noon Mountain Time on Sunday, January 7th at Toyota Stadium in Frisco, Texas. And if you can't make it to the game, tune in live on ABC.
Rare moments in life, they're not just few and far between. They're meant to be treasured.
The top seed South Dakota State facing off against the second seeded Montana Grizzlies for the national championship game. Sam, I'm going to start with you. First of all, how impressed are you with the Grizz this season, especially with the way that they started at the beginning of the year? I think it's fair to say that most people would not have said the Grizz are going to be facing the Jackrabbits in the national championship this year.
Yeah, it's been a great turnaround for them, both, coaching wise, getting their players in good positions to succeed, but also the players actually, going out there and making plays. And whether it's I think the offensive line, was built to be the best that Montana was going to have for quite some time. And maybe it wasn't playing like that early, but then as the season progressed, I thought the offensive line, even with some injuries, was playing much better. Defensively, Montana always generates a lot of pressure. They weren't necessarily doing that in September, but then, some of those blitzes started to get home. And then, the big thing I think is quarterback play. They had, kind of the 1-2 quarterback system going early. Then Clifton McDowell kind of took that over, and he settled in as a pretty fine, serviceable quarterback. And then a few more starts later, all of a sudden he starts making more plays, and by the end of the regular season and into the playoffs, he's an absolute playmaker and one of the top quarterbacks in the FCS. So just a slow progression into playing their best football week after week, which is exactly what you want throughout the football season.
Craig, for South Dakota State, they're on a 28-game winning streak, third longest in FCS history. With the first-year head coach to boot, they are undefeated with Jimmy Rogers at the helm. What amazes you most about the Jackrabbits?
It's been seamless. And, you could have foreseen this with Coach Rogers, being on staff for so long and being a player in that program. I just think, they've had the most top 25 wins. They've had 9. There's really hasn't been too much slowdown. They're automatic when they get into the opponent's red zone and just keep piling on points. I just think the amazing thing is that they've had the expectations, all along, and they haven't flinched. I mean, they've been the top team all along, and they believe it, and they've shown it and proven it to date.
Sam, sticking on South Dakota State for just a second here. I mean, they have been unstoppable, to Craig's point, quite literally this year. I mean, you can look at their schedule. They've got quarterback Mark Gronowski. They've got an incredible O-line. They've got running back Isaiah Davis. They've got an incredible defense that's allowed them to shut out 2 opponents in the postseason. How difficult will it be for the Grizz to get a win over these guys in the national championship game as the Jackrabbits are trying to go back-to-back for the first time ever?
Yeah, it's going to be a tall task, and I think we've kind of said that throughout the season that it's going to be you have to play your best game to beat South Dakota State, no matter who you are, and you have to knock them out of playing their best game. Because I think good on good, talent on talent, South Dakota State is far and away the best team in the FCS. But if you can get them off schedule offensively, which is what Montana likes to do, whether it's chaotic plays or blitzes or TFLs, disruptive plays that gets you off offensively out of rhythm. And so that's what you have to do for Montana is get South Dakota State off of rhythm. And then offensively, I think it's just connecting on those explosive plays. It's South Dakota State's not the most. They don't rack up the TFLs and the sacks. They're not going to lead the country in that. They might give up some yards here or there, but as far as, giving up points, they're kind of just a brick wall. And so long sustained drives against South Dakota State is going to be very difficult, which is where you kind of need to hit those explosive plays, whether it's Junior Bergen or Eli Gilman or whoever it is. If you have an opportunity for a big play, you have to pop that, because those long sustained drives just aren't going to be there against South Dakota State.
Craig, I mean, we all know it's very hard to go undefeated from start to finish in a season. How likely do you think it is that Montana could catch them on a bad day? I mean, the Grizz are playing their best football right now. Sam mentioned it earlier, Clifton McDowell, he's 10-0 as a starter for Montana. You've got Junior Bergen, who's been quite frankly the star of FCS playoffs. You've got the best defense in the FCS with the Grizz. I mean, do you think these guys can pull it off?
You have to give them a chance. I think anybody who says, the Jackrabbits are unbeatable, they're just the best team. Well, yes, they may be overall, but in a one-game situation, no, things can happen. It could be a freak play where suddenly it's 14-0. South Dakota State's behind, like where nobody has seen it or expected it. It could be an injury. You don't want to see that happen to either side, but things happen, and in a one-game situation, and add that on top of how talented the Grizzlies are. You have to give them a shot here. They are the underdog, but it doesn't mean they can't win. They just got done beating, North Dakota State, and that's, shows you something of what level this team is at.
A key factor for each team in order to become national championships. Sam, I'll start with you, and then Craig, you can hop in.
I think for South Dakota State, it's just playing clean football, which sounds pretty basic. But again, if things get mucked up, and we saw that in the quarterfinals against Villanova, Villanova did a great job kind of just throwing South Dakota State off and kind of turned it into an ugly game. And so I think for Montana, you need to kind of turn this into an ugly game, whether it's, turnovers or, poking the ball out or, strip sacks, kind of just things getting a little clunky, I think is your best shot for Montana. And also along the same lines with the Grizz, I think just being prepared for the moments. I think you do see in the national championship game, a team that has been there before playing a team that hasn't been there. Sometimes it can take that team that is inexperienced in the national title game a little bit to get going. And if it takes you a quarter to get going, sometimes it can be too late. So I think it's just Montana being prepared for that moment. The atmosphere, it might not look like, the biggest stadium in the world on TV, but when you get there, it is a pretty decent sized stadium. The crowd is loud. And so just being prepared for that moment, not getting caught off guard, not getting, awestruck by the moment is going to be key for the Grizz.
Grizz have to come out fired up and show themselves in the first quarter, because the Jackrabbits do have the experience here of this long build up to the game. It's actually over 3 weeks when you add in an extra day or two to a Sunday game. So I just think the Grizz have to be able to, not start slowly, because you can't be giving up 2 straight scoring possessions to South Dakota State. You have to match them anytime the Jackrabbits score. I think the big thing may be third downs. I mean, there's really nobody better on third downs, than the Jackrabbits in the FCS, offensively and defensively. And, it doesn't mean the Grizz can't solve that, but they have to be able to limit the South Dakota State offense staying on the field, because that's an offense with NFL talent, and they have to be able to solve the South Dakota State defense on third down.
With all that being said, we are combining the preview segment with the pick'em segment. Craig, I'm going to start with you, and then Sam, you can finish it off. Who are you picking to win the 2023-24 national championship game?
Well, let me start by saying this game, what really is exceptional is the offensive weapons in this game. I mean, you think South Dakota State with all the, NFL talent that we mentioned from the line to, but also, Isaiah Davis and the Yankees out on the perimeter. But the Grizz too. I mean, Sam mentioned, Junior Bergen, Eli Gilman, but they have so much. Keelan White. I just think the offensive weapons stand out here. Now, saying that, I'm going to go with the Jackrabbits. I think their experienced talent kind of gets it done here. Their defense has certainly been tremendous, but I think it's their offense that gets it done in this game. So I'm going to go with the Jackrabbits winning back-to-back national titles.
Sam, Jackrabbits, yay or nay? Who you got?
Yeah, I have to go with South Dakota State as well. We've said it's hard to pick against them all year, and especially in this moment. This is why so many guys are still playing for South Dakota State. I mean, Mason McCormick, Garrett Greenfield, Jaden Jackson Yankee are four guys that, if they wanted to, they probably could be the NFL right now on rosters, but they all decided to come back for their 6 years, their extra year of eligibility to play for a national championship. Isaiah Davis could probably be making $500,000 right now playing in the Power Five if he wanted to, but he decided to come back one more year for South Dakota State to win the national title. And there's a lot of guys like that for South Dakota State. So they're just talent wise, I think they are upper echelon obviously in the FCS. But I think we saw them kind of have a hiccup in the quarterfinals, and they kind of woke up in the semifinals and flexed their muscle. And I think, like I said, Montana's going to have to muck this game up and throw South Dakota State off of its game to get a win, and it's just really hard to see South Dakota State having an off game for their last game for a lot of these guys is in their South Dakota State careers.
I love how you mentioned that, Sam, the number of guys that could have gone to a bigger school, could have gone pro, and decided to come back for this very moment. Very respectable, especially considering the landscape of college athletics that we all live in today. Thank you both so much. I hope you both have a great new year, and I will see you in Frisco, Texas.
From the snowy peaks of the Rocky Mountains to the Golden Coast in the Pacific Northwest, we've blazed our own path forward. We've climbed to the highest peaks. We've reached this summit despite all odds stacked against us. Through consistent hard work and fiery competition on the field of play and in the classroom, we've held each other to a standard worthy of our namesake. We are the Big Sky Conference, where experience is elevated.
All right, guys, we have a very special guest here on FCS All-In, and it's not just anyone that you see on ESPN. He is a face on ESPN's College Game Day. He is SVP's partner in crime on SportsCenter. You know him, you love him. It's the one and only Steve Coughlin, otherwise known as Stanford Steve. And he's kind enough to take some time out of preparing to cover the Rose Bowl in Pasadena to hop on FCS All-In. Steve, thank you so much. It means the world to us here. How's SoCal treating you?
We're good. Good. Sun's out. It was raining back in D.C. when we left last night. So it looks like the weather's going to hold up. I still believe. I played in the Rose Bowl the first day of 2000 against Wisconsin. Ron Dane won the Heisman Trophy that year. And I still say it's the only Rose Bowl that ever rained. And that's one of the glaring problems. Everybody wants that sun going down at the end of the third quarter over the mountains, and we never saw the sun that day. But anyway, moving on. Pumped to be here. Those matchups are awesome. What we have, the name brands alone, and then obviously the name brands we have in the FCS is going to be fantastic too.
It looks like you're going to get the sunshine this weekend, Steve. So I'm happy for you there. And I'm also happy that you brought up that you played in the Rose Bowl. NorCal guy, you played for Stanford, hence your nickname, Stanford Steve. I want to talk about you. Tell us where your passion for college football started. You grew up in Connecticut, I believe. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah. And was fortunate enough to get recruited all over the country. All the big schools wanted me to come. And I made a decision. It wasn't the deciding factor, but the Rose Bowl and the possibility and the goal of always being able to play. My birthday is January 1st. So it was always my birthday watching all the bowl games. And that was just one thing. But then when I went to Stanford and saw, what it brought to the table as far as the academic side and having a plan after football is over, that was one thing that really, I needed something to fall back on. I tell players all the time now, you gotta, in this day and age, man, where everybody's, feels like they know people because of social media, you really need to have an own foundation and a backbone, because ball's not going to last forever. And Stanford gave me the best opportunity to build that plan, and that's why we chose to go to Stanford.
Well, and look at you now. You are like I mentioned. I just mentioned a couple of your accolades, but you're all over the place on TV, on radio, everything in between. And I want to get your advice here in just a little bit for future student athletes. You talked a little bit about it there, but first, I want to thank you for wearing FCS gear on ESPN College Game Day this season, because I'm not kidding. It means so much to, I work along with doing this show, I work for the Big Sky Conference on behalf of the Big Sky. It means the world to us. And I can speak on behalf of the entire FCS that it means a lot to see our schools represented. Why is that a point of emphasis for you on the biggest college football show in America?
Well, we try and give a little shine to as many games and teams and stories as we can on College Game Day. We have the 3 hours of criteria, and we always are asking in our pre-show meetings, all right, what makes this the best? Where can we get in an extra game? Where can we get a mention in of an original game that's maybe not getting the attention it should? So I've always had an affinity for the little guys. Growing up in Connecticut, my brother played at Columbia in the Ivy League. I grew up down the street from the Yale Bowl. I always went to 1AA games. UConn was 1AA back then. UMass had a great program. So I just love the ball. And no matter what the level is, we're still, talking ball. So I made a decision at the beginning of the year. I was like, all right, I'm not going to go Power 5 teams to start. And, people started getting into it. And then Idaho reaches out, and then Montana counters back because they beat Idaho. And it's just turned into a fury. North Dakota State, going back years, when they started making their run to national championships, they sent a bunch of stuff to wear on SportsCenter with Scott. So I've just always found myself watching the FCS playoffs. I still think there's an idea, maybe, when we have these name brand teams that we have at that level, if they would ever play on a weeknight game, I think that would be a huge step if possible. But it's the passion. The two teams we got playing, the fan base is there. It doesn't get much stronger at that level with those people involved in it. And I feel bad, like with Montana and South Dakota State playing. I wish we could find a place up in the Pacific Northwest or in the mountains to play this game. The idea you got to go to Frisco to play this one, I think, takes a little bit out. But knowing these two fan bases, they're going to show up for sure.
I'll tell you what, Steve, I do agree with you. However, in states like Montana and South Dakota, I think Frisco, Texas sounds pretty nice and warm at this point in the year. So
got it.
I lived in Montana for almost 3 years. So I can speak on that I think this will be a nice little vacation, if you will, for these two teams.
Awesome. Good.
But before we talk about Montana and South Dakota State, what is your piece of advice? I know you kind of talked about it already, but one piece of advice to student athletes who are looking to pursue your field of work after college and just in general of having a plan after their time is done of playing their sport.
I think it's pretty simple, but it's a thing that I think is looked past. And I always say, be a go-getter and get experience, whatever it is, whether it's being a spotter for a game or being on your local college radio station. If you want to take those steps, the quicker you get into it, the quicker you're going to learn, and you're going to be past the people that don't have the plan, that are trying to figure it out after college. And when you are a go-getter, you're making connections, you're meeting people. That's a huge deal in sports media, just because, hey, I was at this game and I met so-and-so. It's everybody's, you walk around the sidelines in the press box pregame, it's catching up with friends. And where'd you meet those friends? Probably at a game in years prior. So I always say, be a go-getter and have a plan of getting ahead early. If you're a freshman and you're going, be that freshman that hasn't been the freshman to be on your school radio station. Go to games and ask, the other broadcast, do you need a spotter? Do you need anything on the sidelines? Whatever. be involved. And it's people hide behind their phones all the time and want to comment on everything. But when you're out there and you're on the field or you're in the press box, those face-to-face meetings mean the world. You don't forget faces and conversations the way you do whether you're texting or posting on something. So I think the face-to-face thing is still it gives a sense of being genuine. And I still think that goes a long way in this world.
Well, Steve, thank you. I'm even taking personal notes right now. I'm like, okay, Stanford Steve says this. I got to do this. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I know that all of our student athletes do as well. Let's get your thoughts on this game. We've got the reigning national champions in South Dakota State trying to go back to back for the first time ever with FCS coach of the year in Jimmy Rogers going up against a very prestigious name as well at the FCS level in Montana. First time for them in the national championship since 2009. Who you got? What are your thoughts? Give us all the tea on this game.
There's a lot. I mean, I wonder about Montana people knowing, because they haven't had a lot of success in this game when they've gotten here. Only 2 out of 7 or 2 and 5 in the 7 games. And now you look at, you're against the biggest brand there is now, with going for back-to-back, undefeated. What they looked like in the semifinal was just took me by storm. I didn't get a chance to watch a lot of South Dakota State, even during the playoffs. I figured they would be there in the end, and then to put that one on and see them go up and down the field. The defense is dominant. I thought was really interesting and scary for Montana at the same time, because Montana, having to play, I think, tougher teams, but you get that with your seeding, right? And Montana's as battle tested as anybody. But the way they've had to throw the ball so much more in the last couple of games, I wonder if that's going to help them in this instance, knowing how good South Dakota State is. I think in Montana it's huge to play with the lead. If they can play with the lead, then they could dictate. They can get into more balance in their run game. But it's a lot easier said than done. South Dakota State, a double-digit favorite, and they should be with what they put on the field. Gronowski's been incredible. Love watching that guy play. I can't imagine the emotions of that program, what they've put on tape, on the field, already accomplished, and they're knowing they're one game away from this. That's pretty exciting stuff. So I don't know if they're going to cover the spread, but I think South Dakota State wins this game.
Give us your score prediction and give us, if you are the king of sports betting, what are you betting?
Let's see. I'll say South Dakota State 34-21.
All right, guys, there you go. Stanford Steve, 34-21. I'm going to keep a mental note of that. Steve, thank you so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate your time, and best of luck at the Rose Bowl. I hope this must be a personal career accomplishment for you as well, to not only play in it, but I mean, you've covered Rose Bowls before, but to be there once again.
It's scary when I think about it going over there this weekend that I played in this game 23 years ago. It's not good thinking about getting old. Don't want to celebrate any more birthdays. I just want to enjoy these games and take it all in there. There's no better setting for it. And I can't wait. We have everything we wanted in these semifinals in this bowl season. So fired up for it for sure.
Steve, you don't look a day over 25. All right. You are ageless. Thank you so much. I appreciate the time.
Thank you so much.
And that wraps up our final episode of FCS All-In this 2023-24 football season. Thank you to all who have watched throughout the year. We can't tell you how much we appreciate it. We hope to see you in Frisco for the national championship. You'll have to let us know on social media if you are down there for the game. If not, enjoy your weekend and enjoy the rest of your football season. Thanks for watching.